We want to thank Next Level Marketing for being our opening sponsor on the podcast. If you have social media that you use for marketing, you need to check out Next Level Marketing and follow them on Facebook. You can also reach them at Gary Bontrager Consulting on our website, www.garybontrager.com. They will do a free audit for you and check out what your social media, how it's performing, what loopholes there are, and how you can tighten it up and be more effective with your marketing. They will help put strategies together to use organic growth to maximize the dollars that you do spend. We appreciate them being an associate sponsor with us on this Mindset Growth podcast and enjoy what they do for us. This is a company that we work with and we endorse, and we don't take that lightly. I want to welcome you to another episode of Mindset Growth Podcast. My name is Gary Bontrager, your host. I am excited for our next guest. He's not a stranger to me. We work side by side and have had the honor of working on a lot of projects together. So without much further ado, I'm going to introduce to you Ray Gage. He has developed a leadership program that a lot of our clients are using and going through and finding extremely helpful in the process of growing and scaling their businesses, as well as just finding a comfort level within their companies and having employees that they can put a process together that they can learn and train and grow and all be on the same page with the objectives as they work through growing and developing their companies. So with that, Ray, thanks for joining us today.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
It's awesome to have you here. One of the exciting things, and I think it's probably no secret, I'm going to start with this just a little bit to give people an idea. I think so often when we get involved with companies and businesses, foundational things have to happen clearly because we certainly understand that there are foundational basics that need to be in place, such as your accounting. There's just other systems and processes that need to be there. You know, obviously you have to have marketing strategies and, mission statements and things like that. But one of the things that that I've become very aware of the fact is often before you can even build a mission statement for a company, you'll have to have whoever the leader of the organization is, they need to have a personal mission statement and core values. And then it segues on into how they develop what the focus of their business is. And then how do you develop your talent? And it's so interesting that, and I've heard this before, and I imagine you have too, but we'll get a response from a group of people or a company or a business owner we're working with, and they will tell us that, we're giving them the feedback that they don't get from other people. And a lot of it is maybe they have employees that are just trying to pat them on the back and support what they're doing and trying to figure out what they're doing, but they're not getting that dialogue to, get fresh ideas and where it's an interactive dialogue and that everybody has a voice and can be involved in that. So one of the things that you've worked on really hard is building out a leadership program. And we're hearing some great reviews on that, but I guess tell me this, what has triggered you to even build this curriculum?
Well, it really goes back to what you were saying. I mean, a lot of people that we work with, and actually this is true for, across, it doesn't matter what type of business that you're in, but for a lot of people that are entrepreneurial, they're entrepreneurial, have an entrepreneurial spirit or attitude that they want to start a business. They do it because they know how to do something really well. And so they think that means that they can have a business, and they can, right? The success of the business, though, is dependent on more than just them being really good at something. And to start out with, what we find is that they are really, really good at what they do, but they really don't have any idea how to run a business. So we go in there and we help them with the things that you talked about, your accounting, your IT, your HR, your advertising, your sales, your marketing, your compliance stuff. You have to have those things to have a business.
Correct.
However, if you want to have a business you can scale, you need a lot more than that. And if you just try to take those things and duplicate them, then you can scale your business, but you're going to have the same size business in a different location. And then maybe you have the same size business in multiple locations. And so you think, oh, I've scaled my business because I duplicated my business. Well, duplicating and scaling are not the same thing.
Right.
So duplicating is a franchise. So, scaling there's a lot more to it than just making the same thing happen in another place.
Right.
So the thing that we found was pretty common, and there's a lot of research out there that talks about this. There's a lot of really reputable organizations that talk about the importance of leadership, or what happens to companies with poor leadership. Gallup is one of those that everybody's heard of Gallup because they do a lot of polling and things like that. But the common thread of businesses that scale is they do the things that we talked about. They have to, or you don't have a business if you don't do those things.
Right.
But the reason they're able to scale is because of the things that they do that you can't really measure. The only way you can measure them is by the things that you can see. But those two things are personal growth and leadership development. And so and we've seen it happen with the other side of it is you and I have seen it a lot, and we hear about stories about it all the time, is people get stuck, right? You hit a ceiling and they can't get past that ceiling. And usually the reason is because they've got to adjust something with their foundation, and the foundation is leadership. So the one common thread in every organization that scales at each level is they're developing leaders. And so that was the reason for the wanting to develop a leadership program. Now, I feel like the way that we built it is a little bit different than
why don't you talk about it?
Yeah,
just talk about that a little bit. But yeah, the reason, I guess, is you really, and we kind of identified this void, because once we put those other pieces in place, it's like, now what? Mm-hmm. And it's easy to come in and say, if you do this and do that, that's more or less like a coaching almost side of it. But the consulting, a consulting piece of it, but the coaching side of it is getting people to shift their thinking and how they process and approach each day and how they build out that organization. So talk a little bit about the next step then.
Right. So wanted to come at it from a little bit of a different angle. And I know there's probably other people that have tried to come at it from the same angle. There's so many different programs out there that are available. But the real reason behind it, or I guess the concept itself, is that we wanted a leadership program that wasn't just about business, right? So because at the root of it, my ability to lead others is direct correlation to my ability to lead myself. So if I can't learn how to lead myself better, then I can't learn to become a better leader. And so anybody who wants to learn how to become a better leader can learn how to become a better leader. You're not born a better leader than someone else.
Exactly.
Based on the experience that you've had up till now, you may have had things, you may have overcome challenges that have allowed you to do that, but that's the personal growth side of it. Right. So it's more of a, what I refer to, and, you hear this in other places, it's more of an inside out type of a leadership program. It's called Leading from the Inside, is actually the name of the program. And it encompasses more than just the business aspects or the leadership aspect from managing other people. It starts with, how do I show up better for myself? How do I manage myself better? How do I manage my thoughts, my emotions, my time, all those things that I need to learn how to manage better in order for me to be able to manage other people better. So it really ends up being kind of we actually had one client that's going through it that made the comment that that what he really loves about it is usually to get this type of content, you'd have to hire a business coach and a life coach. And he's like, I'm getting it all in one program.
Right. So that's huge. What you're saying is you're multi-talented and multifaceted. No, it's
well,
something.
So are you, Gary.
I know it's something that we're both passionate about, is that leadership piece of it. And here's the thing, I've heard it said that if you have an organization, and not everyone, and I'm paraphrasing a little bit here from how I heard it, but if not everyone in that organization has a communication channel where they can throw ideas they have up chain of command and they can be received and maybe used, you've really got a toxic work relationship or a work environment. And so we talk a lot about health. I mean, there's a lot of things today that we talk about health, and it's anything from, the foods we eat to the behaviors we have and other things. But it really, leadership is a huge piece of that. And if you're going to organize that, if we as individuals believe that we know the only way and the best way to run a business, we're going to obviously hit a cap and a wall, because there are many other people doing the same business as a lot of our clients with a completely different leadership process, a whole different way of going about doing business day to day. And at the end of the day, they're turning out the same revenue with a similar amount of employees, maybe less. So there's not just one way to do all these. And I think sometimes we have to get out of our own way and realize that if we're going to really grow and go to the next level, we can learn from a lot of other people. So what are some of the key things that you hone in on the leadership side? I don't know if you want to just take us through, like the different steps or chapters or how, modules that you've put together.
Yeah. I mean, there's a total of 20 lessons in the program. And I call them lessons. We could call them modules, whatever you want to call them, but there's 20. And I don't know why there ended up being 20, but that's how many there are until it changes, right?
Yes.
It started out with about probably less than half of that when we first beta tested the program. And I realized that how many other things were missing or not touched on. And in the original version, the one that we rolled out as our official version here of the leadership development program is much more comprehensive. But it's not. I mean, you can't put everything into one program. But at the same time, I think that a lot of programs try to overcomplicate where things that don't need to be overcomplicated. So, like you mentioned, the not being able to have proper channels to provide feedback. So one of the things we talk about in the communication module is developing a feedback culture, right? And that's challenging for most people. That's challenging because and people have asked me this, business owners have asked me this question: why do you think it's so challenging to develop a feedback culture? And so I asked them this. I said, well, let me ask you this. When you were growing up in your household, was feedback encouraged? Yeah,
That's interesting.
Feedback wasn't really encouraged. And when, and I know how you were raised, how I was raised,
Right.
how a lot of the people, but it doesn't even really matter what, whether you have a certain religious background or something, anything like that, those things don't really matter. It's just,
well, it's
a cultural thing. The fact is that feedback, where have you ever been where feedback was encouraged, right? Feedback wasn't encouraged in school.
No,
it wasn't encouraged at home, but yet we want to develop a feedback culture in our businesses. And it is important, right? But it's a complete mindset shift when you think about it like that. That's why it's so challenging, because it's not something that people are used to doing. And being okay with knowing that, hey, I can give feedback that I don't have to worry about whether or not it comes across as negative, right? Because we want negative feedback too. We can't improve. You
Absolutely.
don't just want positive feedback, because positive feedback doesn't help you improve. Negative feedback is what helps you improve.
And in
And
order
there's
to
ways.
and in order to have receive negative feedback, it takes a level of humility
Mhm.
and really being confident in who you are as a person. Because there's times we've both seen this when we're working with a business owner or a person and they get the feedback and they're like, they just kind of blow it off like, yeah, what's that guy know? Well, the fact is they may know quite a bit about that particular piece that they're working on.
Absolutely. So that's a big thing. And that's it's interesting that you happen to bring that up, because a lot of people don't think of it in that way, right? So, because I know for me personally, and feedback was not encouraged in our.
No, and
So,
I think
yeah.
one thing culturally is there's kind of this demographic, just and it's maybe somewhat in the American fabric as well. You got dad and mom, and the kids are beneath that, and there's times I'm sure some families grew up with it's better to be seen than heard. You don't have much to add. Once you're an adult, you can do it as you want to. And so it is a mindset, a lot of that. It really
Yeah.
is. That's been really ingrained into our culture as a country.
Yeah.
So,
So and that's in the communication piece of it. So the heart of the course is the 4 pillars of leadership. And that was the original course by itself, right? So we've built around it. So, the 4 pillars are vision and direction, communication, talent development, and prioritization. Those are the 4 pillars that we talk about, right? There's so 4 out of the 20 lessons or modules in the course are communication. That's how important communication is.
say that again.
So
How many do you have
4
out of 20?
out of 20 are on communication, just on communication.
The reason I hit on that, we've already talked about some of the things, and that is positive feedback, but that is simply communication.
Mm-hmm.
And communication is key. That is usually the number one problem in relationships in general. It doesn't
Well,
matter where it's at.
at the heart of every problem involving people is communication. Communication's there. It's a piece
Right.
of that problem. There's
Right.
no problem among people that doesn't have a communication component to it.
Right.
Just not. So communication at the same time is the glue that holds it together. Lack of communication can be the thing that blows it all to pieces too.
Right.
So we talk about that. We throw in, we spend quite a bit of time just on the introduction, just setting up the program. And, we talk about the 3 essential qualities of an effective leader: clarity, balance, and presence. And we talk about the 4 domains of trust. We talk about how to identify leadership disconnects. There's the art of the decision is one of the modules. And at the end of it, what we talk about is so Google has a project they call Project Oxygen that they started in 2008 or 2009, and it ran for 10 years. And it was a leadership study, basically. And they basically found that the one trait of the leaders that were most effective were that the leader knew how to coach. So we have a module on the leader as a coach as well. But that's at the end, right? So that's
Right.
basically that's the last lesson or the last module. So it covers a whole wide range of everything, but still the core concepts are the same, right? This is leading from the inside.
Right.
So how do I become better? How do I better myself? Because it's going back to your childhood again. I use this example, but your children, for the most part, are not going to do what you tell them to do if what you do is different than what you tell them.
Correct.
They're going to model your behavior.
Right.
If you want to be more effective leader, then you need to model the behavior.
Correct.
So that gives you a little bit of a
throw one
little bit
past
more
you here.
information.
Yeah, we often run into, and I've run into scenarios where you've maybe got a smaller company and they're starting to scale, and one of the burdens for the business owner is that he's not able to be out on the job site, what, you know, if it's construction or something, but he's really starting to find himself in a new role. And so he, you know, because he's needing to do different things because now there's things to do that didn't need to be done before. You kind of address all that a little bit too, like how the shifts and changes happen as they, you know, scale out a business, some of the things to look for and to be aware of, and how to be okay with the fact that, you know, they are going to, things are going to be different. They're not going to be the same as what they were before. And then getting employees to transition and get the buy-in for those transitions.
Right. So we don't really talk about that scenario specifically, but we talk about it in a more of a broader sense, I guess is what I would say. And that is, as a leader, you're going to have situations like that are going to come up throughout your business.
Right.
So it's really difficult to identify specific situations and then cover them all in the in a course like this, right? So, but on the other hand, the one thing that we focus on a lot is the concept of co-creation, which you can also refer to as engagement or buy-in.
Okay.
So how do I, as a leader, how do I create that environment? And how do I get that with my people so that when those situations like you mentioned come up, I know what to do. So I don't have to talk specifically about a situation like that and then coach someone through it, because I've taught them how to look at that scenario of co-creation, engagement, buy-in from a broader perspective.
And so when they're putting the systems in place, it's naturally starting to develop.
Right.
We want to thank Gary Bontrager Consulting for being a sponsor on the Mindset Growth Podcast. There's a variety of services they offer. They have human resources for one. They have a sales program. They also work with the financials, whether you need to help set up your QuickBooks or go with a high-level person that can help you do benchmarking, budgeting, and the likewise. They also do a lot of leadership training, whether you're the business owner, manager, or are just leaders in departments. They can tailor those packages for you. Reach out to them for a free consult, and they will see what your needs are and offer different opportunities for you to put in motion to take your business to the next level. They have been successful over the past few years in helping organizations not only grow, but grow as much as 200%, 300%, and 400% in a 12-month period. Certainly, they understand it takes a strong foundation, and there are years where there may be no growth leading up to this as they put the right pieces in place. Reach out to them at www.garybontrager.com. You can reach out to them on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Twitter and get the free advice that they offer. And that may be just what you need to set you on a different path to lead you forward and be successful in your business and your life. We appreciate them supporting us. So I know you've taught this now. You've, got your final revisions, I think, in place. And, we're going from the original idea to seeing a need that needed to be filled to this point. What's some of the things you're feeling? Is it, clearly I'm sure there's some gratitude or that you're to this part of the process, but.
Well, there was a pretty immense feeling of satisfaction.
Right.
Because the process started in, I think it was August of last year. And you and I know, this because you and I talked about it. I didn't anticipate the program development to be that intense. And so it really kind of surprised me when it ended up, but it completely, when you beta test something with in a real life scenario, you learn a lot about the program
For sure.
that you didn't know before you do that, right? So, and that's kind of what happened, and that's why it developed into something bigger. I thought I was going to be done with it, maybe October or November, and and I'm not 100% sure that the actual curriculum itself is not going to be tweaked a little bit here and there, but the curriculum itself is done and was done. Oh, I think I posted it on Facebook. So I think it's been about 2 or 3 weeks ago now. It's been that we completed it. And then the week after that, I completed the draft for the workbook. That's one of the other things that's going to be a little bit different about the course. I know there's other courses with workbooks, but we have the workbook that'll have exercises in it, that'll have worksheets in it. Just the workbook for the course is probably going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of 60 pages long, just for the workbook.
Right.
For the course. So it's extremely satisfying, I guess. So that's what answer your question.
Well, and I would even ask, have you maybe answer this question too, is what is the, what's the target for this? I mean, is there a type of business? Does this work in anything from, say, a church setting all the way to, construction to personal life? I mean, how do you view as a target market for this?
Right. So it's really because of the way the course is designed. I mean, it's not industry specific. There's really doesn't matter what your experience level is in a leadership position or lack of experience in leadership position. The way the course was designed, and again, I keep coming back to it, but it's learning how to lead yourself. So learning how to lead yourself, then wherever you're plugged in as a leader, even if it's just, at home, right? So, but if it's a church, if it's a, construction business, manufacturing business, retail, service, it doesn't matter. And it doesn't even really matter what level you're at. If you're just if you're a entry level manager or you're a CEO, if you're in a leadership position and you want to strengthen your leadership skills, then this course is designed to help you do that.
Well, and I would throw this plug in for anybody listening to this. Most times we look at somebody as having a natural tendency to operate a business or fill a certain position or do a certain thing. But it really comes back to, and I don't care if you're working for somebody else or what you do, at the end of the day, it is super important that you continue on a personal growth trajectory. And if you're going to feel fulfillment in life, then that's a big piece of it. And if you can develop your leadership talent, you're certainly going to continue to elevate yourself into other opportunities. Don't focus on the money. I would say focus on the personal growth and the development of you as a person. I'm saying that to the listeners. I know the powerful impact that is made for myself in my life, and I know you have seen it in your own life, that as you focus on personal and professional development. So I just challenge anybody listening. This leadership program will absolutely transform your life if you give it a good, honest, opportunity to go through it and work with it. It's going to make a huge difference. There's a saying that our friend John Maxwell always says, and there's a couple thoughts that come to mind when I think of leadership, but the one is everything rises and falls on leadership. And I just like your thoughts on that a little bit, because clearly that's what this is all about in the different facets of leadership. Like communication is really the paramount point of all of it. I mean, it really comes back to that. But, if somebody wants to grow themselves or their organization, what are your thoughts to that statement?
Well, I mean, it's 100% accurate. And the interesting thing is one of the first, I think it's the second lesson, actually. It's one of the first 3 lessons we actually talk about. So one of the things I didn't mention, and this is a good spot to put it in, is the way we design the course is there are implementation pieces, right? So after every lesson. And so what we don't want is we don't want somebody spending a penny that they aren't going to see a return on.
Right.
But we're giving opportunities for implementation. So that's why we didn't create it like a seminar. So we could come in and have people come in and do this whole course in probably a 3-day seminar. It'd be pretty intense, right? Probably be 8 hours a day for 3 days. And they'd go home and put it on the shelf because they start putting out fires the next Monday morning and not get any value from the course. So we designed it so that there would be gaps in between the lessons and opportunities to implement what we talked about between the lessons. And one of the things we ask in one of the first lessons is who is someone that you know as a leader in your life that you want to emulate or mirror? And it's really interesting because without exception, it has to do with how the person that gets picked in every situation where we ask the question it's based on how that leader made that person feel. It's not about what they did. It's about how they made them feel. And so I don't know how, that ties in to me, that ties in with what you said, everything rises and falls on leadership. And when you've worked for an effective leader, people know when they've worked for an effective leader, and people know when they're working for an ineffective leader.
And it comes back to communication again.
The majority of it.
Right.
Right.
All right. It's interesting. Well, but communication is more than just words.
Mm-hmm.
I just had a conversation with somebody recently, and I said, well, did you know? And they gave me kind of that shrug and disgust look and said, yes, I heard. Now, those 3 words didn't mean much other than an acknowledgement that they had heard that there was this other conversation.
Mm-hmm.
But the shoulder shrug and the look on their face wrote a volume right there. And then the problem is it often is left up to the person who's interpreting that, to how they choose to receive that, and how now that person is going to be possibly thought of as a human being, how they will be respected. There's times I've had conversations with people where you'll ask a question or you'll start in on a certain topic of conversation and they just start to go silent. And it's probably the biggest screw you can give someone. It tells you a couple of things. You have no value in my life and you're wasting your time right now. And it's just think about that as you got whoever's listening to this, think about that, because there's a lot of people that don't talk as much as what you and I do, Ray, but they say a lot more with body language. And your employees absolutely know, your coworkers absolutely know what you're saying. But if you can articulate well with words, you can share your story and your opinion, your values about these other people, or because it's somebody who's maybe had bad experiences and been hurt in the past, and you give these expressions and move on, you're leaving it up to the person that's receiving that to write his own opinion about what you just did and said. And when you go back into working with companies like you and I do, and they're like, but I didn't say that, but you really did. You put it out there and you left the interpretation to somebody else rather than articulating clearly through words how it really is and what your belief system is on all of that. So I'm just going to plug that in because I want folks to understand that communication is so much more than just your verbal communication. And that is probably the most important piece. But how many times do you walk away from a conversation as well where somebody maybe didn't speak much and you go, they're a good listener. They were focused on you. They're smiling. They're nodding. They're engaged. I'm just saying body language has huge implications. And how you decide to write your own story really does matter. So if you're going to sum this up and give, hang on one second.
You're right. Sorry, I was just trying to let you know.
Oh, okay. I thought you were at 5. Okay.
Nope.
Good. He didn't start the clock on me.
Yeah. Sorry.
Okay. So working through this on the as you work through this whole process, and I know you have different target markets that you kind of have built this for, what would be some of the key things that you're getting back that you're hearing from clients that are going through this? You know, what's some of the feedback? You know, whether they were maybe like, I'm not sure I should do this, maybe I should. Maybe they were all into it. They knew they needed it. But what is some of that feedback that you're hearing?
So probably the thing that's the most interesting to me is, and we've had feedback from different levels, and I mentioned the one that talked about how he felt like he had a life coach and a business coach, right. With this program. So, that one was pretty big. But the one thing that has been pretty universal, and it's the magnitude of it depends on the number of other courses that people have taken. But without exception, we're hearing that this course it's at a different level. And I don't mean that as far as like it's way better than other courses, but it's at a level that other courses aren't, right? And that doesn't mean it's better necessarily, or that it's just that it's unique in that way. And even people that have taken other leadership courses or been to leadership seminars, read leadership books or whatever, they're picking things up in this course that they hadn't thought about or heard about before. And I love that, because I think that's what we were going for with this, was because it's really, really hard to develop a leadership course that isn't going to have some components that are going to sound familiar when they're compared to others. But there needs to be something that makes it different. And we're getting that feedback.
And so with that, what's some of the formats, how you teach people and take them through this curriculum?
Right. So we have three different ways that we're offering it. The one is individual. So we'll take somebody through it on a one-on-one, and, we can structure the course, or we would never do it more than once a week, because of we want there to be time in between for the implementation, for the reflection and the homework, the exercises and things like that. But we have done it. We are doing it with on an every other week as well. So individual is one. Peer group is another format that we're offering. And we don't have a peer group currently, but we just rolled out the course. But then the other one that we are doing is on a company level. So we will do the course for a company, and we're not limiting the number of participants for the company. They just have to make that decision as to how many they think is too much or just right for everybody to be able to get the maximum impact from the course. So we have the group, we have the peer group, and we have the individual.
The thing that I think I know is important to you is sometimes there are some, very popular names out there, and you can buy a training package, but you might be put in with 100, 200, 300 other people. And so it's more of a lecture form. From what I'm hearing you say, though, like I know from a peer group, you're probably going to cap that at 10 to 20, and you want interaction, because it's very important that you get to be effective. And I think that's maybe what you were alluding to when some of these people say it's different. We're not trying to overwhelm the volume of people in the program, even though it might fiscally be more beneficial to you. But we're really trying to make sure that it's a format that's effective.
Right. 100%. And the feedback is the important thing. And and then since you brought that up, probably because I forgot to mention this, is that was one of the things that was talked about by actually the first person who went through the course, was that there's an opportunity for interaction constantly. So when you do it on a one-on-one basis, the course actually takes longer.
Right.
Because you have constant interaction during the course of each lesson. And some of those lessons take more than a week. And sometimes we go back, right? It's like, hey, can we go back and redo that lesson? Because I missed some things or I forgot some things and I remember. So that's why it's so important to have I mean, you can scale it. I mean, it'd be great if we could have, 200 people on a peer group call, paying 150 grand a piece, like some people do but what's the impact, right? So that's a Fortune 500 company with a, who knows, $25-50 million a year training budget that's putting people through a course so they can check a box.
Right.
Are they really developing a leader? Probably not, because that person has no skin in the game.
Right.
There's not a test. They get a certificate and somebody gets to say, oh, we spent the budget.
Right.
So we want, our whole mission is to create impact. So we want to create impact for people's lives, and then how they can impact other people's lives through what they do for work. So that's why we limit it. And that's why we want the feedback. And that's the reason why we want people to be able to say, hey, I've got this scenario, how would this apply, or how would I apply this lesson or this concept in this scenario? You can't do that in most courses.
So I'm going to ask a question, put you on the spot a little bit here, but you just brought up the word mission and talked about our mission with this product. But how important is it for those companies and those people taking this to also have a mission for their life?
Well, nobody really needs to know where they're going or why. So it's probably not important.
It's the first foundational piece, isn't it?
It is. I mean, if you don't know why you do what you do, if you don't know what it is you're doing and why you do it, then why are you doing anything?
Right.
And I mean, you can know it in your head, but if the people that are working for you or that you're working with, they can't see inside your head. So you have to put it down on paper.
Right.
You have to develop that. You have to take your what and your why and write it down.
Right.
And that's your mission, vision statement. That's your core values. And, then you build around that, right?
Right.
You can't cast a vision that you don't understand.
Right.
So
those are just foundational pieces.
Right.
Why don't you give us if you've got an elevator pitch about this course and why they should take it, why every company should take it, even whether they want to scale or not, just to develop people and, to help people learn maybe new skills and better communication and things that will affect them positive in their life. What would that be?
Well, if anything that we've said here gives you pause enough to wonder whether or not you should take this course, you should take this course. And it's that simple.
Okay.
So, if something in you is thinking, I may need to take this course, then you probably need to listen to that something that's saying, I might need to take this course. So what I would say is that if you feel like you're perfect at leadership, then don't take the course.
Well,
if you feel like you have work to do and you want to move the needle, then take the course.
Right.
Because taking the course isn't going to make you a perfect leader, but nothing's going to make you a perfect leader, but taking the course will move you further towards that.
Right.
Goal.
Excellent. Well, I appreciate you coming on and doing all of this. I want to let people know you can go out to our website, Gary Bontrager Consulting, and you can read Ray's bio. You can kind of check us out there. And you can also, soon, you'll be able to see some information there. Another thing I would encourage you to do, just to follow Ray as an author, is find him on Facebook. He puts a lot of information out there. Ray Gage is just your standard name there, so there's nothing special about it or any company or anything there. But there'll be information on his personal page and as well as Gary Bontrager Consulting's personal page. So, or our business page, I should say. So you can find a lot of information. We'll keep you informed. If there's travel and events where you want to maybe come and do a meet and greet and meet Ray, just track us on those platforms. You will find him there. So with that, I thank you for joining us, Ray. I'm excited for the life-changing difference that's about to come with people that take it, just based off of what I've seen happen from those who already have. So thanks for spending some time with us here today.
Hey, thanks for having me.